Um, so we're going to get started. If people could please, this is a small group for us. Hopefully folks will join later. If you could introduce yourself in the chat and please say what your CRS community is, like what class rating you have if you are a CRS community. And if you're not a CRS community, please introduce yourself and just note what your affiliation is. As y'all know, you don't have to be a CRS community to participate in our meetings. This is intended to provide information for those folks that are interested in learning more about the CRS program, potentially joining the CRS program, or the CRS program isn't something that your community wants to join, but you're interested in floodplain management issues in coastal Virginia and beyond. We have a lot of people who are joining from outside of the coastal zone, which is great. Everything that we talk about should be relevant. Rich, I just muted you. I apologize. There's just a little bit of background noise. Rich Sabeto is the CRS contact for FEMA Region 3, and he's teaching the L273 or E273 class that's in Abington, Virginia. And that's a DCR sponsored course. Okay, everything's coming in regarding everybody's CRS community rating. Good to see folks from participating communities and non-participating communities. Good to see people from Northern Virginia. Hey, Nora. And a lot of our usual players, which is great. We have a really packed agenda today, kind of crazy packed. And so I'm going to try to set a quick pace. Rich is going. Bye, Rich. Thank you. Oh, good. Kristen Jones is with us from FEMA Region 3. She is the floodplain specialist for Virginia. So Kristen, thanks for being here.
Nice to see you. Thank you guys. I know I've been gone for a while, but I'm glad to be back.
Good. I'm glad you're back too. I'm sure you're very glad to be back because I suspect you were in deployment somewhere doing something.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Everybody's doing introductions. If you want to change your name so people know who you are and who you're coming from, where you're coming from in your Zoom picture, you can do that by hovering over your photograph, or if you're off camera, your little name, and then hit the ellipses and select rename. So if you do it like I've done it and Madison has done it. I'm Mary Carson Stiff. I think I know everybody on the call. Wetlands Watch. Madison Teeter is Wetlands Watch's newest employee, not so new anymore, which is crazy. She's a program associate, and she's really helping me out with the CRS Workgroup and NFIP issues in general. Just want to note that Madison is a CFM as of last week. So big deal. She took the L273 class at EMI in person. So the EMI program is running well, and she didn't get COVID from that experience. So that's pretty sweet. So great to have another CFM on staff and in this meeting. Okay, so let's get started. We are, I got real busy with the Newport News facilitator manager, and we booked out the James room, which is the larger room in the Newport News facility. We booked it out for all of 2022 and 2023. I know that there will be some conflicts with these dates at some point. The major conflicts were removed, obviously holidays, but as you all know, when there is a big meeting or something that happens in our community on these dates, we always try to adjust and shift around. But these are kind of our standard last Wednesday of every other month moving forward. We will always have a Zoom accommodation thanks to the Coastal Zone Management Program's provision of the online virtual tool. But we will do a hybrid when we can. Obviously, instances like this with COVID will maybe come up in the future, but for the most part, we'll let you know if it won't be in person and on Zoom. These dates are on our website, so you don't need to try to kind of write them all down right now. I'm going to put a link to that on the chat. They're on the home page. Just scroll down right above the picture on the home page of the website, link in the chat. I'm still doing backlog stuff for CECs. Everybody who's new to this or maybe a new CFM, we get about 1.5 for most meetings now. We've really got it down to a science with ASFPM, who is the awarder of the continuing education credits for CFMs. So you do not have to do anything to receive these credits. That's why we have registration. And I track people who are participating in person. And that's why when we're online, we do polling. So you don't have to worry about anything. I submit it. And if it doesn't show up and you are participating on your CFM profile, then follow up with me. But pretty diligent about getting everybody's CECs counted. Okay. All right. That being said, let's launch our shoot. You have logged in from another device. Your polling session is inactive. Ugh. Do you think Skip is using the Zoom? And it wasn't you?
Oh, he might be.
Oh my gosh, we have 2 Zoom accounts, so this doesn't happen.
Is he in a meeting right now?
No.
I can call him real quick if you want.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay.
Okay, we'll come back to that. The Zoom fun continues, people. It's just saying that you're a CFM, so that'll be an easy one to come back to. Okay, so this is our plug for the Virginia Floodplain Management Association. A new year for VFMA has started, and that means a new membership year. Membership is very affordable. We're trying to improve our VFMA organization by offering lots of resources and trainings for our members. We're talking about potential CFM trainings and to kind of complement what's happening at DCR and what FEMA offers at EMI. And so just want to encourage everybody to participate in this organization. We had a lot of corporate members last year, which was really great. You save a little bit of money. This cost is not significant, but we're excited to grow this group. And I serve on their board, and Whitney is our VP, and Kristen Owen with Henrico County, formerly with DCR, is our president, and she's at a doctor's appointment since she's pregnant. So without further ado, our ISO representative for the state of Virginia is Emily Schmidt. You will notice that that does not mean that Emily Schmidt is the only person that could cycle you or, could be responsible for reaching out to you regarding CRS issues. This is just the #1 go-to person if there's an issue with your cycle timing or an issue with your annual recertification. Emily is the person that you should contact first. So her email address is here, and she's been copied on tons of emails that we've sent out previously as well. Okay, so I want to do another poll, but I'm just going to have to wait for 1 second. While I'm waiting, I want to show you all a resource. We do this every once in a while, and I know I did it during our last meeting, but I'm working on beefing up this document. A while ago, Wetlands Watch started tracking everybody's CRS scores, and we did that because the information that ISO provides nationally is not always accurate. We've seen a lot of inconsistencies between what ISO actually gives the local government staff when they tell you what your score will be. we saw a lot of inconsistencies with that letter that details your score and what FEMA National has online. So I started asking all the CRS communities if they'd be willing to share their letter that outlines exactly what credits were received for what activities. And I've populated a list of scores. So each CRS community has its own chart, and the chart shows how many points that community has received under that activity and how many points are possible, and then a percentage of the total points possible. So I just feel like this is a really helpful resource for Wetlands Watch when we're receiving phone calls from communities saying, does anybody receive credit for X, Y, and Z? This allows me to very easily go through the CRS communities and say, well, actually, yes, Accomack County has received credit for this, this, and this. So it's helpful, and I hope that it will be helpful for y'all. I'm going to try to do this poll because it says the poll is inactive. Geez Louise. Okay, so I'm going to log out and log back in, and hopefully the recording won't stop. And if it is, we'll just redo it. So many apologies. I'll be back. How do I do that?
You might have to, give me host temporarily so it doesn't end the call
Okay.
and kick everyone off. So when you hit leave meeting, just designate me as the host.
Okay, guys. Okay. Hopefully that was pretty fast.
Yeah,
I can do my calls. All right. That was weird.
that was weird.
Okay, so I'm going to launch the first poll, which is the CFM poll. This is an easy one. And then the second poll I'm going to launch is about the CRS scores. The second poll, just to save time, is just asking if you've received a new CRS score over the last 2 years and you haven't sent me your letter, basically. I try to follow up with people and request most recent letters. And I will be doing a big push to make sure I have everybody's most recent letters over the next 2 months, because I'm going to be updating that document that I included in the chat. So that's what that is about. That's why I'm asking for it. And just kind of by a show of hands, has anybody used this document in your CRS work to contact other people, to see how other folks are scoring, to see how you're scoring on things? Anybody used it? You can use the hand raise to say. I see one hand. It's weird, I can't see whose it is. Oh, yes, I can. Tom. Yay, Tom. Anybody else? Well, I use it a ton. So if I'm using it and Tom's using it, then that's good for me. Okay, I'm ending the CFM poll, 92% participation. I'm going to hope that me and Madison are the ones that haven't participated.
I participated, so.
Tristan uses it. Yay. Great. Okay, 100% have answered. Awesome. I'm going to end this poll and I'm going to do the next one. Okay, second poll related to, oh, Tristan says we used it a lot. Okay, great. That's very cool. All right, thank you for filling this out. This is just to note, if you're going to send it to me, if you say you're going to, in the first response, I'll follow up with you. I'm going to leave this up. Okay, as you will remember from our November meeting, FEMA has issued a request for information through the Federal Register. They are looking at modifying their minimum standards for floodplain management and land use. We have been participating and hosting some small informal discussions at the request of a larger organization that works nationally on flooding issues. And we gathered kind of floodplain managers from across mostly the East Coast and the Gulf to kind of talk about some of the issues included in the RFI. We have kind of whittled down the topics that the RFI includes. So FEMA said, hey, if you have thoughts about any of these issues, we'd like to hear from you. We removed all the references on this slide to threatened and endangered species. This is like a huge part of it. As you may recall, I sort of mentioned that, FEMA's in hot water over their compliance with ESA, the Endangered Species Act. At least that's sort of what the appearance is. And so a lot of those questions are intended to see how or whether the National Flood Insurance Program can help assist FEMA in meeting their goals related to endangered species. So we're not going to comment on that in great detail. And I suspect that y'all might not either. And so I just wanted to let you know and remove those. This is the list of the RFI topics that we'll be touching on in our comments. Wetlands Watch will be submitting separate comments that will be in direct response to the questions listed on the RFI. We'll be submitting those tomorrow, which is when it's due. I just wanted to give everybody the opportunity, if they're not going to submit their own comments, to voice some concerns that you might have. That we could include in our comments. We're happy to do that as long as they're consistent with what we think, and there's a very good chance that that will be the case, and I'm not quite sure when it wouldn't. So I just wanted to raise this because if you are interested in having some of your specific concerns and recommendations, we want to offer the ability for you to communicate those. Sorry, I know I'm repeating myself, but I was trying to figure out how to launch this poll. So that being said, if you want to include something, you can add it in the chat or you can email me. If you don't want to, that is absolutely fine. Just making sure the opportunity is presented for those that do. We can make our comments, and we will make our comments available. Obviously, they'll be public record. But we're definitely going to come at this from a coastal perspective, and we're going to come at it from a future conditions perspective, because that's kind of what we're interested in. Okay, I'm going to leave this up. Okay, I'm going to turn over to Madison, who's going to talk about the Community Flood Preparedness Fund.
Awesome. So I know we've talked about the Community Flood Preparedness Fund consistently through all of our meetings, and we've updated you all on the revenues that have been made through the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which is where the Community Flood Preparedness Fund, gets its revenues from. There was an auction at the beginning of December in which Virginia received over $85 million, and over $38 million went to the Community Flood Preparedness Fund, because 45% of the revenues from RNG goes to the fund. Important dates that came out. In December, it was right before Christmas, if you might recall from our notifications, that the second round of awards was announced from DCR. A little over $24 million in awards were announced. It was 30 separate awards across many localities across the state. Another important update from that is that the third round is now available for applications. $40 million is available for localities to apply to. That is the most that has been available through the fund. So we really, really encourage you all to apply. Applications have been open since January 5th, and they will be open till April 8th until I believe it's 4:59 p.m. So it's before 5 o'clock that day. And then we anticipate, this is what has been told to us by DCR, but we know that this can change. Awards from round 3 should be announced June 17th. So you'll know by the summer if you apply, if you were awarded. Another thing to note, as we've had conversations with localities, if you are applying for that project category, as a refresher, there are 3 categories that you can apply for the fund. There's the planning and capacity building category, there's the studies category, both of those in which you are not required to have a local resilience plan in order to apply for. But if you want to apply for a project grant, you have to have a local resilience plan that is approved by DCR. You can submit your local resilience plan prior to the application date to get that approved. So you can do it today, tomorrow, anytime up until April 8th to get it approved. So you know if your local resilience plan is approved before you spend all of that time and energy getting a project grant submitted before April 8th. And DCR will have back and forth conversation with you. For whatever reason your local resilience plan does not get approved, they'll tell you why, and then hopefully you'll be able to work on it and get it approved before that application deadline. So just wanted to make that clear that you do not have to wait until April 8th to submit that local resilience plan. You can go on to the next one, MC. We just wanted to highlight where the applications have been awarded to around the state, because there is an understanding, or there's been a narrative, that only applications have gone towards urban areas throughout the state. And DCR actually made this lovely map that shows that there have been plenty of awards that have been given to rural communities. If you all are interested in what these projects are, VCN and Pew actually put together a really good interactive map that you can scroll over and see what the grant was, like the title of it, what it was funded for, how much, and then where it was. And NC just dropped that link in the chat. So if you're interested in what kinds of projects, or excuse me, what kinds of applications and grants were funded for these communities, you can click on that link and scroll over and see who was provided what. Then you can move on to the next one. We've put together a bunch of resources to help communities keep track of what's going on with the Community Flood Preparedness Fund, because we know that this has been moving fairly quickly. We've already had 3 grant rounds, and we know it's moving kind of fast for localities. So we want to make sure you all know everything that's been going on with it, and also all the resources that are provided to you to make an application easier. So all of these are linked, and I know MC is about to throw all the links in the website as well if you're interested in looking at them. But we have a tracking website. It includes all of the auction dates and revenues that have been made from Reggie. It has all of the previous grant manuals and the current grant manual. Oh, that's something I meant to say before. In case you're interested if anything's different from round 1 or round 2 in the new round 3 grant manual, it is exactly the same. All the same match requirements, all the same types of components needed to apply. So nothing's new from that end of things. So if you're interested in what's been going on over the past year with CFPF, we have a tracking website that includes all of that. We also have I believe it's 2-page fact sheet on there that includes everything that you really need to know in order to apply to the fund, because we know that the grant manual is kind of long and it takes a little bit to get through it and really see what's required for each of the categories. So if you just need the nitty-gritty to see if it's worth it to apply, which we highly encourage you to do so, you can check out that fact sheet. We also put together a local flood resilience plan consultant list. So we know that a lot of communities are looking to hire consultants to help them write their local resilience plans that are required in order to apply for that project category. We have listed out the consultants that have been utilized by other localities that have applied for the fund, and then also consultants that were used as to help with the components of other localities' resilience plans. So just briefly, in case you don't know, you don't have to have your local resilience plan be one single document. A lot of the local resilience plans that have been approved by DCR already have just been components of documents that localities have already created. So like their their flood ordinance, their hazard mitigation plan, parts of their capital improvement projects have been listed out. So all of those things can be utilized as part of a local resilience plan. And then we listed out consultants that helped out with those documents in case you all are interested in hiring a consultant to help you all do yours. Once again, there's that interactive map of approved applicants. And then another thing that has been going on are, oh, I see a hand. Do we want to go ahead and, Kathy, do you have a question?
Well, my question is for the round one people,
Yes.
has DCR, like, I know you got the, yeah, you got it, but is it, I mean, are we further on in the process, or, I mean, how long is it taking for them to start contacting the localities and get the grants, started and that whole thing? I'm just curious if anybody has done that.
Have you all not received an agreement to be signed between DCR and the Virginia Resources Authority?
Well, we're the second round,
Oh.
so that's why I was curious from the first,
Gotcha.
how long it's taking.
How long? That's great. Who can answer how long from the first round?
We know that it did take some time for people to get that official agreement, and we've had other people from round two reach out to us and say that it's taken a bit of time to receive that agreement. And from what we know, it's just administrative delays, but if there is anyone on the call who received a round one grant and can tell us how long it took to get that official agreement from DCR, that would be helpful.
Norfolk or Virginia Beach?
I don't know, since the grants work through planning, they're through Public Works, and we don't have them on the call.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's see, that's
Matt, yeah, I wondered about that, Tristan. Matt would be the one to answer. You're not alone for round two delays, is what I guess our most informed response can be.
I mean, yeah, I was just, just curious as to what kind of timeline we're looking at. So it is what it is. So.
yeah, absolutely. We can check in with some other people that we know who got awarded for round one and see what their timeline was, and we can always send an email out.
Yes.
Okay.
This is Crystal Bloom with Chesapeake. We had 2 grants awarded. So I was just looking back through. So we submitted it, in September to the group, our application, and then we heard back from them at the end of October that we were awarded it. And then it was about a month later, they sent us all the paperwork, and it was due by the end of December as far as the agreement and all that. So it moved pretty quickly for the first round.
Okay. All right. So sometime for those of us who got one at the end of December, we're probably the next few weeks what we're looking at. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully. We can connect with DCR too about that to see if they have a timeline as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, no, I wish that there was someone from DCR on the meeting today. They're not, they usually are.
Okay.
There's also a question just before Madison, you move. Daryl Walker, the effect of the administration's attempt. We're going to talk about that next after this overview.
Great. So any other questions in regards to this stuff that we've talked about so far before I move on? Okay. If you end up having questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. The last piece of resources that are currently in development are applicant fact sheets. So MC, if you want to move to the next slide. VCN and the Virginia Conservation Network is working with all of the conservation groups across the state to put together fact sheets like this. You can see this one was made for the city of Winchester for the grant that they received in round one to make their local resilience plan, to kind of outline how beneficial that this community flood preparedness fund has already been in the first 2 rounds of its existence. Because as Daryl alluded to, there has been efforts both at the executive level and the legislative level to remove Virginia from RGGI, and thus that would take the funds away from the Community Flood Preparedness Fund to be able to fund these projects across the state. So the conservation community is really just trying to highlight all the different areas that have already benefited from the Community Flood Preparedness Fund. Fact sheets will be made for every single awardee from round 1 and round 2, like I said, to highlight all of those awards. It will include a short summary, how much the grant award was, and then if you all are able to, if you know that your community was awarded through the Community Flood Preparedness Fund through round 1 and round 2, we're really trying to make sure there's some local flair in each of these fact sheets. So if you all are able to provide a short quote on how the grant that you received from the Community Flood Preparedness Fund is going to benefit your community in terms of flood resilience, that would be great. Some people from BCN and the conservation groups have already reached out to you. Great. If not, and you are willing to provide a quote, please just email me and MC, and we can make sure that the quote gets put on your locality's fact sheet. But the fact sheets are going to be made regardless, and we will, once they're available, we will provide them to you all to use for whatever you want to use. It doesn't just need to be in support of CFPF and for Reggie, but for whatever outreach purposes you need to make them for. But we wanted to make you all aware that these are in development, and if you'd like to help us make them by providing a quote, it'd be really appreciated. Okay, so on to the legislation that's currently in the Virginia General Assembly. So the Virginia General Assembly started 2 weeks ago, I believe now. There are efforts within the General Assembly, like I said, to remove Virginia out of Reggie and to block the funds that are going to the Community Flood Preparedness Fund. So we just wanted to give you all a very high level overview of all the efforts that are being made currently. So there was an executive order that was issued on Governor Youngkin's first day of office that said, we're going to take Virginia out of Reggie. That executive order has since been rescinded because it is not within his power, his executive power, to take the state out of Reggie without going through the legislative process and also going through the Air Quality Control Board, because that was who originally approved the state's participation in the Reggie program. So he alone cannot take the state out of Reggie. So he issued a new executive order, number 9, to have a report due to talk about the cost benefit analysis of Virginia participating in Reggie that will then go to the Air Board in his hopes that it will take Virginia out of Reggie. There's also a budget amendment for the whole budget bill that's out, which is House Bill 30. It's also Senate Bill 30. There are duplicate bills of each other in the House and the Senate. And it blocks the ability for Reggie funds to be spent at all in any future cases. So if this were to pass, unfortunately, that would mean that round 3 awards would not be able to be issued. So this one is the one that we're really looking at we really don't want to have passed, because then that would basically put a stop on the current round 3 grant round that's live. There's Senate Bill 532 and House Bill 1301. Once again, those are twins of each other, just one in the House, one in the Senate, and it repeals Reggie within the General Assembly. So this is the action that would take Virginia out of Reggie on the legislative level. And then there is a bill, SB 508, that is not taking Reggie or taking CFPF away at all. It's just it's editing who can administer the fund. So this would give the Soil and Water Conservation Board oversight of the Community Flood Preparedness Fund. So right now it's currently held up in negotiations with the Farm Bureau, and the bill would add 3 seats to this Soil and Water Conservation Board, specifically to help with the CFPF issues.
Yeah, and this is just to provide a little bit of an anecdote. This is in response to some concerns over the lack of oversight and kind of reporting of how the resources are spent. So there have been a lot of initiatives to create a board that would actually make decisions about actual grants. The Soil and Water Conservation Board is DCR's preference, which has been stated publicly. They would like for it to stay under the purview of DCR, and the Soil and Water Conservation Board is affiliated with DCR and staffed by DCR. The Soil and Water Conservation Board also has kind of authority over floodplain programs. They do have the authority over the existing dam safety grants, and that grant used to include floodplain support, but now it does not because of the CFPF's existence. So they manage grants. It's, that's the reason why that was sort of the preference for it to go there. And that was the preference of the previous administration to have it go to the Soil and Water Conservation Board as opposed to creation of a new board, just as a little bit of background.
Did you want me to go over these ones as well, MC? I didn't know if you were going to.
Oh, right. Yeah. So those are kind of the CFPF Reggie related bills. And there might be others, but that's kind of, these are the big ones. And the same will be true for this slide. It's been a real, I don't want to say hot mess, but there's been a significant number of bills introduced that have intersectional issues and at times, conflicting direction, and at times complementary direction in part, but not in all. And so basically, without listing each bill on this first bullet and outlining exactly what it would do, we've combined three very related bills. They're being looped together by legislators and sort of in attempts to consolidate, modify, merge. So there's one vehicle coming out eventually. So we've looped them together for that reason. What they will essentially do, what we think they will actually, oh my gosh.
Let me see if you need me to take over, I can.
Yeah, if you don't.
So what these bills, the top ones, would essentially do is the coastal master plan that came out last year, at the end of last year, it was only focused on the coastal communities of Virginia, and essentially these bills would expand the master plan to be focused statewide. As we know, flooding is not only a coastal issue, it is a statewide issue. So it would have Dewberry then expand the efforts that they've already done within the coastal master plan and make it statewide. And that would have to be, I believe the timeline for them, it would have to be done by the end of this year and be published at the beginning of next year in 2023. And then it would have, it would then be mandatory for the state to update that plan every 5 years, which is something very similar to what the state of Louisiana does. It's similar to what the state of Texas does. So there are models of states doing this elsewhere in order to plan for future flood risks. It would also codify the technical advisory committee that helped put together that initial coastal resilience master plan. So it would make sure that all of that technical expertise that went into putting together the coastal resilience master plan also would help with the statewide plan that would come out. So Senate bills 504 and 506 were the original bills, and like MC said, it's an attempt to be put together. The bill that kind of put them together is Senate Bill 551, if you're interested in looking at it. And then the other bill, which I think MC might be able to expand more on than I can, is the Coastal Resilience Authority being created. And this would be another entity that would have the oversight on the Community Flood Preparedness Fund. Obviously, we have some problems with this bill because this is a Coastal Resilience Authority that would have oversight on a statewide fund. So they're trying to make the bill expand to where it wouldn't just be a Coastal Resilience Authority, but a statewide authority, since it would be administering a statewide fund.
Yes, this is these two bills and their companion bills are really important for everybody to kind of be aware of and watch, because they are Governor Youngkin's administrative priority. So this Coastal Resilience Authority came out of the announcement that Governor Youngkin made when he was at the Hampton Roads Chamber of Commerce, when he noted that that he wanted to withdraw from Reggie. He said, but we'll create a coastal authority to have oversight over the issues that everyone is dealing with in the coast. And then when he announced the pick of Wheeler for Secretary of Natural and Historic Resources, this idea of a coastal resilience authority was brought up specifically. So the good news is that the administration seems to be willing to come to the table and negotiate on this statewide concern that many have. And so we're hoping that there will be some progress made, and that whatever authority is devised, it would have statewide significance. As you can see with everything the state is trying to do to create a statewide flood plan, it only makes sense that all of our efforts really do move to this statewide approach. And obviously the coastal master plan couldn't have that reach because of time constraints and resources. So that's the state of play. There are so many moving parts, and it changes every day. The top bullet, all of those bills passed through the Senate Ag Committee yesterday afternoon. So everything is very fast paced. And if you're in the know in the General Assembly, you know that that is absolutely true. So we'll just be monitoring this very carefully. And when something major passes, we'll be sure to let folks know through email. So TBD on pretty much everything. All right. Any questions? Let's just stop for a second.
I also want to know if there's any efforts being made on y'all's local level to provide support for Reggie to be maintained within the state of Virginia and keeping the Community Flood Preparedness Fund. If there's anything that Wetlands Watch can do to help provide resources or anything of that manner, please let us know, because we definitely want to show strong support for the state staying in Reggie, and those slew of bills that we showed on the first slide being against those. So if there's any way that we can help, please let us know.
Yeah, and Daryl says, any way for y'all to keep us posted on these bills? Yes, we can send out emails when major things happen. I don't think anybody wants the play-by-play on this mess, because we're doing play-by-play phone calls all day, every day, and it's a lot. But larger milestones, we can definitely send update emails. Great. We want to be a resource for y'all. And we know that there's significant value in CFPF, obviously. Okay. I want to talk about a project that a graduate student from UVA approached me about. I said he was a PhD student in my email, and he's a graduate student, so I don't know if that matters to anybody, but I just wanted to correct myself. Logan is this guy's name, and he wants to help build or fill in some of the capacity gaps at the local level for the CRS program. So it's a really cool project, and it is related to open space preservation. And so obviously we think it's great because it really tags on to the work that Wetlands Watch is doing to help communities fully realize their open space points under Activity 420. And it's really important, I think, also because there are extreme hurdles related to GIS capacity in a lot of communities. And we know that one community in particular decided not to join the CRS program because when they looked at the GIS requirements for a lot of the documentation, they estimated that it would cost $10,000 to just get a documentation submitted for the purpose of achieving a small class rating to join the program. And that was a non-starter for that community. So we're aware of that, and nobody should participate in the CRS program unless they have capacity, because there's nothing worse than saying, here's a flood insurance discount, policyholders, and then realizing that you can't keep up, and then people rely upon that discount and then no longer have it. So I just want to be very clear that we don't think that you can, create capacity out of thin air. But if you know that this is one particular thing that you're struggling with, and for open space specifically, this resource could be of value to you. So I'm just going to share, these slides came from Logan, the student who created this. And so I'm sharing them with his permission. The objective is to increase CRS participation and then help with GIS capacity building. Basically, this tool is to show what floodplain areas, so what areas in the SFHA or the 100-year floodplain could be eligible for open space credits. If you all recall the open space viewer that was created by the Nature Conservancy for the Outer Banks communities, he has taken that kind of an approach basically, but he's expanded it a little bit and made it a little bit more Virginia specific and looked at a lot of different data sets. So those of the kind of original CRS Workgroup members will recall that we had a very detailed presentation from the TNC team several years ago on this viewer. This is the TNC viewer. And this is showing the same area as the TNC viewer to kind of show where his predictions and models differ from that resource. So it's just showing areas that could be eligible for open space credit, as well as areas that aren't, that could be creditable. So this is an example of a review in South Boston, Virginia. And then on the right is a review in Petersburg. And so our Petersburg friends on the call might find this to be of interest. Basically, what he's showing is what's possible open space credits based on current land cover and current conservation. So if there's a nature preserve in the community, he's counting that as definitely creditable. If it's protected by conservation easement through one of the state databases, he's counting that as possible credits. So it's in that purple category. And then future possible open space credits are in red. So this is where he looks at a large swath of land that might not be developed, but could be in private ownership. And this is kind of the idea that if a local government were to partner with a conservation organization, those parcels could be prioritized for potential conservation. So development would not occur on them in the future. So pretty interesting approach that he's taken. And this potential future credits and potential current credits is consistent with how the Nature Conservancy's tool for the for the Outer Banks was structured as well. So basically what this student is interested in learning is whether or not this tool has real ground truth potential. So he wants to validate it using existing CRS open space GIS data that might exist. So the end goal is to increase accuracy, look for pitfalls, and refine the tool so that if a CRS community says, we don't have GIS capacity to do an open space review, but we'd love to explore this viewer to see if we could use it to submit credit, you'd be able to do a lot of plug and play and then submit to ISO without too much of a time burden. So we'll see if that can happen, and Wetlands Watch is interested in following this along with Logan to see if there is a way to do this type of a plug and play action, which would be great time saving for all the CRS communities. So Logan Grant is the contact. His supervisor is Majid. And this gentleman has been very active in the western part of the state with the Weldon Cooper Center at UVA, working with communities on CFPF stuff. And so he might be a familiar name to many of you. And I just am excited about this project because I think it could really help communities capitalize on the open space that's in their community for CRS points, and think that it's great that a graduate student is interested in CRS because it's pretty specific and pretty cool. One of the things I want to note is that Tom has said kind of what I think a lot of us know, the amount of work for open space from submissions for cycles is a lot more. So they're asking for far more specificity than ever before. And I think that calls in question this need for potential assistance. Tom, do you want to elaborate on anything else about that? Sometimes Tom's microphone doesn't work, so. Here we go. Why is my mouse not working?
Tom said the amount of, no microphone here, but to document the RPA, I had to give them a list breaking down over 6,700 parcels.
So, and I created, so we had to do that for James City County as well as Gloucester County for their open space reviews, but we didn't really have to break it down. We were able to just submit a auto-generated from ArcGIS Excel spreadsheet that said, basically I changed the headings of each row, and it just said parcel, acreage, OSP, RPAs, basically. And then I was able to submit that without the additional information that might be required for individual like parks or reserves or conservation easements. We can circle back on this too. But yes, the documentation for this is very intensive because Virginia is able to receive so many points. And so I think that, you know, the more success communities have with getting credits for the RPA and for tidal wetlands and wetlands in general, the more attention there is, unfortunately, to the reporting on all of this. I have a poll for this, but I think it's my last poll and I want to save it for later because that will help with getting the 1.5 CECs. The poll is just intended to kind of gauge people's interest in letting Logan see OSP GIS data. So that's really the ask here. If there are communities that have successfully submitted for open space in activity 420, would you be willing to share your GIS shape files with Logan so he could kind of vet his tool? Yeah, Tom is saying some of the extra credits go by the wayside. So, you know, the communities that have done this comprehensive GIS, it's James City County. I'll reach out to y'all separately since I helped with that. Gloucester, which hasn't been submitted, you know, they haven't had their cycle review yet. Hampton, to a degree, submitted a lot, not quite everything, but they do have GIS data sets at least. And Tom, and I can connect with you about that. I know you haven't had your official sign off on the data for this round, but you certainly did for the last round. Doesn't have to be exact. He's just looking to see it that his model is on track. Okay, so I'm going to launch that poll. So we're getting a 1.5 points, definitely 1.5 CECs. All right, we're cruising through this information. I feel good. Anybody have any questions about that open space review overview? Nope. Okay. All right. I want to talk about the coastal zone management programs support for the CRS work in Virginia that Wetlands Watch is doing. As you all know, CZM has been supporting the running of the CRS Workgroup, as well as a lot of our CRS research and NFIP work. And I just want to make sure everybody is aware of what we're doing out there in Virginia and some of the resources that are available because of that work. Nora Jackson, before we start on this, she has to drop off. Bye, Nora. Thank you. The Regional Commission in Northern Virginia is hosting a webinar on Risk Rating 2.0 with Rich. And so that's on February 3rd. Thank you for including that Zoom link, Nora. If you'd like to participate, definitely do that. Risk Rating 2.0 changes frequently, and Rich provided an overview at the Virginia Floodplain Management Association meeting back in December, early December, and some things might have changed as everybody gears up for Risk Rating 2.0 to be fully effective in spring of this year. Thanks, Nora. All right, so this past year from the Coastal Zone Management Program, they supported lots of different activities that Wetlands Watch was undertaking with the CRS program. We provided 3 new CRS trainings and evaluations to the towns of Smithfield, Dumfries, and Colonial Beach. This is when Wetlands Watch basically comes in and meets with different members of the staff and provides a long form workshop. And the first part is information about the NFIP generally, detailed information about the CRS program. And then the last portion of it includes a working lunch and a review of the community's existing activities that could be creditable for the CRS program. What happens after that is that I basically create some of the introductory materials that are required for a community to actually join the CRS program. So I try to do a lot of the early upfront legwork. So if a community wanted to join, they wouldn't have to spend too much time on the application materials. There's a spreadsheet that goes along that basically has every activity in the CRS program and notes about what the community does or doesn't do with reference to what they would need to do if they wanted to receive points. And where possible, I include templates or examples from other communities, not just in Virginia, but beyond, that could be plug and played for the community if they wanted to receive these points. So this is, I've done 15 localities since 2019. And this is something that the Coastal Zone Management Program will continue to fund us to do for as long as it makes sense with their priorities. So interestingly, kind of in reference to those 12 previous communities that received the CRS training or evaluation, I was tasked with following up with those communities to see where they were in their thought process about joining. Many of these communities were seriously considering joining, and some of them just wanted more information. And so I had a hard time getting in touch with everybody. I think that this was right in COVID, in the thick of COVID, and that people were just basically on fire 24/7, which makes sense. But of the five communities were responsive, and I had follow-up interviews with them. And one of those 5 communities is actively joining the CRS program. Most communities that I spoke with hadn't really had time to think about it because we all know what happened in 2020. The biggest takeaway from this is that there is so much capacity needed in communities in the coastal zone in Virginia. And this is a no-brainer. Everybody knows this, but I have felt it very acutely in trying to reach out to local staff. A lot of our trainings were in rural and smaller communities where capacity is the #1 barrier to joining the CRS program. And so we shouldn't be surprised that it was tough to get in touch with people. I take that 1 out of 5 and even 1 out of 12 as a really good step in the right direction. As you know, not everybody will join the CRS program. It doesn't make sense for everybody. So it's really interesting to follow back up with people. We were also funded to do kind of general resilience building with the CRS support at the front and center. We gave presentations to various different groups and planning district commissions on resilience related issues. This was especially relevant at the time of the 2020 and 2021 legislative sessions, during which tons of flood resilience related bills were passed and administrative decisions made. And that was good to be out helping inform folks about all those moving parts. Finally, this opened the door for a more kind of official integration of CRS programmatic work into the RAFT process. The RAFT, I'm sure many of you have heard of it. It's the Resilience Adaptation Feasibility Tool, and it's spearheaded by UVA and VCPC, Virginia Coastal Policy Center at William and Mary Law School. And really interesting and cool to be working with those RAFT communities and providing additional information about how the CRS program could help complement the resilience initiatives that are highlighted as part of that RAFT analysis. Most obviously for this group, the Coastal Zone Management Program grant provided work group support. So support for me to run these meetings and support to purchase that new equipment, which has been helpful in accommodating our kind of growth outside of driving distance of Newport News, to help people feel as though they're really engaged in a group discussion. Because just virtual, it's hard to feel like you're part of a discussion. Right now, it feels like I'm talking into a vacuum of darkness. And when you're in person and also accommodating people online, it feels much more like we're connected. So I just want to note that I wrote a little report. It's a white pager, and it outlines the growth of the CRS Workgroup. It's kind of cool. I tried to sort of start at the beginning without too much detail, cataloging where we started and where we are today. And of course, we started with Gloucester and Poquoson communities coming together under the leadership of Ken Somerset. And we have grown to include participants from all over the state, which is really cool. Bobby says he feels like he's staring into a black vacuum every day at work. So I feel like a lot of us are there. So glad to know we're not alone, Bobby. I've included the link to the kind of the report that I just referenced on our growth. And I just wanted to highlight some of the visuals to illustrate this growth that are included in that report. This is a map of our kind of regional reach as a work group. You can see that in Virginia, we really are expanding to the west as more communities start thinking about flood preparedness. This has a lot to do with the new resource and the Community Flood Preparedness Fund being available. And it has some to do with some of our Hampton Roads friends moving and working out in the western part of the state. We have good Northern Virginia representation. There was a Northern Virginia CRS Workgroup effort at one point, and that kind of work group or user group community of practice dissolved when one of the staff members who was heading it up left a community. And so we hope that the Northern Virginia folks find this to be a useful resource for them as well. I just want to also note that we're not just having folks participate from Virginia directly. Our friend from West Virginia who's on the call today, that's very close to Virginia where he's located, but we do have some representation from West Virginia. Philadelphia is FEMA Region 3. That's their headquarters, and that's mostly Rich and Kristen. Atlanta, this little blurb, that's where our ISO coordinator is located. And Louisiana, this is where the group that's doing the Home Raising Academy, Roderick Scott, is located, and he's been a participant in our work group as well. So it's pretty interesting to see this geographic distribution. We've been collecting information ever since we've started the Zoom, you know, and where everybody's located and where people are joining from. So I would check out that report if you're interested. It's kind of cool to see the change over the past couple of years. Okay, this is our current grant. This is what we're up to right now. We are going to be, the grant continues to support Wetlands Watch's involvement in the CRS Workgroup. We're going to be doing much more floodplain education. So I'm going to be working on creating, you know, videos that's basically a recorded Zoom session of that CRS Workgroup workshop, the training. So we're going to try to make our resources available for consumption whenever is convenient for people. Again, knowing that capacity issues are so significant, we just want to make things as easy as possible for as many people as possible. So I'm going to record some general training, and then we're going to try to do some specific CRS activity related trainings as well, and make them recorded and available online for folks. We're going to ramp up our website and kind of update it and clean out some of the old documents and replace it with new. That's just an upkeep thing that takes a lot of time. We're going to do 2 of those additional CRS training evaluations, bringing the total up to 17 when this grant closes in October of 2022. And then we're going to do even more presentations and provide a little bit of technical assistance to raft communities. So working with that team from UVA and the Virginia Coastal Policy Center, and working with the raft communities that are going through that process. So whatever we can do to help communities better understand how the CRS functions or what NFIP obligations they have, we want to be sure that we can be a resource as those communities are going through that intensive feasibility analysis. It's more like a feasibility, it's like a resilience audit. We're also going to create a guidance document that very clearly spells out how communities can receive CRS credits for the work that they're doing to manage development and keep development out of the CBPA buffers, as well as wetlands in the community. So this is growing off of the work that we've been doing to get, you know, RPAs and wetlands kind of a check, easy to receive credit, in the sense that ISO has vetted it and the review shouldn't be so extreme. We're going to try to create a guidance document for CRS communities. So it's easy to understand what you need to do and how and why you're able to get those credits. Virginia obviously has the RPA buffers, but Maryland has a really similar buffer program that I haven't really engaged with the Maryland localities much to see who's getting credits for those. I think they call them intensive areas. I can't recall, sorry if I'm getting that incorrect, but there's a way to kind of share what we're doing in Virginia to help communities that have similar protections along their shoreline. Finally, we do have some support to monitor the big changes to the National Flood Insurance Program. Risk Rating 2.0, we've talked about that in our last meeting, and we'll continue to talk about it as it comes live, is a big change. And in concert with that change, the CRS program is going to update as well. And we have a good line of communication to the CRS program nationally, and have been asked to help inform some of those changes, kind of provide that, you know, on the ground perspective when those changes are being considered or even being developed. And I just want to be sure that we're passing along what our communities that are involved in the CRS work group are finding to be most important to them and most critical to preserve, or what could be changed to help improve your administration of the CRS program. So lots of back and forth to come on that. Okay, so those are the grants. Now this is our first meeting of 2022. And so this is when we kind of take a breath and kind of assess where we think we're going. These are some of the things that I'm really hopeful for and things that I would like to focus on. This idea of doing very specific and targeted activity training and making those resources available for people to reference either for the first time or for a second or third time if you're about to undertake a significant push to tackle some of the CRS activities that you might not be receiving credit for already. So I'm going to be brainstorming about that, and I really would love to hear what activities you'd like to receive kind of more in-depth training on. So if you have some activities that you're curious about, please put them in the chat, and you can follow up with me or Madison via email later if you'd prefer to do it that way. I really miss those bring your whatever staff member to work group meetings, bring your floodplain emergency manager to work group, bring your planner to work group. These meetings were so fun, and they brought a great diversity to the conversation because staff members that aren't engaged in our work group came to the table to talk about how their work could be creditable through this program. And it gets to one of the main goals of the CRS program, which is to build a comprehensive floodplain management approach to managing flood risk in a community. So it just opens the door. So there isn't one person doing all the CRS work in a community. We're already seeing that this is changing in this work group makeup because there are multiple members from communities participating in our work group meetings. This was not the case a long time ago. And it's just really exciting to see that the effort is being shared by more than one person. And I think that's because communities are improving their class ratings, so they have to have more help because it's more work. But I also think it is an understanding that everybody needs to be involved for this to really work. So again, if there's specific activities that you want to focus on, specific people you want to bring to work group, please add that in the chat or email me separately. There's been a lot of talk, for years off and on about regional projects. How do we get how do we basically create templates that everybody can use without having to reinvent the wheel? So I'm going to be thinking about this. At one point, there was this idea that maybe the peninsula communities would want to do a regional program for public information. I don't know if that's something that people are still interested in, but I know that there are some multi-jurisdictional efforts to streamline communication right through the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission's Flood Fluent campaign and through some of the other initiatives that are bringing local staff from different jurisdictions together. So if there are some ideas that you have, I think that would be good to discuss. And then basically, James City County is interested. Okay, cool. There's some really good models for PPIs, and I have a great contact from Florida. This woman is just a dynamo. She basically runs a PPI that has like 20 some communities in it. So like over 100 people participate. And when she presents on it at conferences, she sort of seems very calm, cool, and collected and says it works great. So I don't know what kind of magic she's bringing to the table, but we do have some really strong people that we can lean on to garner their expertise and bring it to the table here in Virginia. So those are my kind of where I'm thinking we could go in 2022, but it'd be great to hear from y'all on what you're thinking. This is our last thing to talk about before we do report outs, I think. So yeah, so we can spend some good time talking about it. Nobody wants to talk. I'm over here in a COVID sick house, just losing my voice, talking, just myself talking.
There's not blood dripping from the walls, is there?
There's not what? Blood dripping from the wall.
Blood, like from The Shining.
I know. I feel like that. Both my children in tricycles staring in the hallways.
Yeah. Red rum on the. I mean, there's not a whole lot going on with us here in Chesapeake, obviously. Just obviously we're in our class 7 now, and we haven't gotten a whole lot of distant feedback or anything. I guess no news is good news, or not hearing a whole lot is okay. It's a grant for a resiliency plan that the city's working on. So Liz, and I can't say her last name, but the Timmons group, they're heading that up. We actually had a meeting with Crystal Bloom, myself, Rob, and a couple others. So from an OEM standpoint, we kind of have some do outs or some stuff that's kind of CRS related that we're, you know, contributing to that plan, some information for them. So it's kind of like the biggest thing that we have going on right now. And then the other thing is everyone kind of knows is that the regional hazard mitigation plan is being updated. So we're working with Lee Chapman on parts of that. So that's pretty much it. That, and now we're looking at dealing with snow again this weekend. So always something. And COVID, of course.
Yeah. Bobby, is there anything that that your team is interested in drilling down on with the CRS in the future? Like any places that you know you want to go to increase your rating?
So I know you and I have talked about open space stuff, so that's always like a key point. Liz, so the girl Liz I was talking about with Timmons Group, she did some work for us, and I feel like it was some activities in the 300s. I don't remember exactly what it was. I have to dig back through my emails, but she found some stuff that we probably should be getting credit for. And this is what I mentioned when we did our verification visit review with the work group, like stuff that we missed. So that we need to go back and maybe just be a documentation error on our side, stuff that we're not doing. But that's something that we want to look at and see how we can, you know, get credit for that next time. So we're actually adding a planner in our office. So that's going to kind of create a little bit more bandwidth for us here in OEM. So that'll allow either myself or whoever the new person is, us to work together and kind of give a little bit more time and energy to CRS than we have in the past. So we're really kind of looking forward to that.
That's great, Bobby. Glad you have that new staff person coming on.
Yeah. So that's about it.
Cool. With all of the Hampton Roads communities going through the hazard mitigation process, planning process, has it been difficult to meet your mitigation goals because of a lot of the COVID delays from the past 2 years? Has that been a big part of the discussion? I haven't participated in those meetings, unfortunately.
Really, I mean, we actually, so a lot of our action items, well, I mean, we have 16 of them. There was only one that we've never really accomplished, and that was actually, you were just kind of talking about a little bit, is the whole PPI thing. We have not done anything with that. So that's something that we kind of were talking about, mulling around, just striking it, taking it out, and then actually Lee kind of talked me back into keeping it there. And, you know, trying to do some stuff in the future with that. So that's probably like the biggest outlier. Everything else we seem to have done fairly well. There was a little bit within our with utilities, as far as like they do a lot of smoke testing of their pipes and stuff, and they were a little bit behind on that because of COVID, but I think they've since caught up with that. But that's really, you know, minor. I mean, there's nothing really stands out that we, other than the PPI thing that we were missing. So
Yeah, that's interesting. Chesapeake's in a good position to launch that PPI because you already have the NEMAC committee, the committee that looks at, you know, disasters and events. and
Correct.
stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, that's about it.
Cool. Thanks, Bobby. Anybody else?
Ken put something in the chat. I don't know if you want to read it, if you want me to.
Oh, what can we do to have our state representatives? Yeah. There was a time when the CRS was referenced in the General Assembly that there seemed to be a little bit of a push to educate elected people. Yeah, I don't know. That's something we could think about, how to alert representatives about success to build support. Nationally, there, you know, in the NFIP reform bills that have just cycled for years and years, there's been some inclusion of federal resources to make available for basically like CRS support positions regionally or statewide. And that's something that this group's own Shannon Holst-Jarboe helped the representative from, I think it's Rhode Island, draft that language. So it's really interesting. This issue of capacity is felt and understood at all levels. We can talk a little bit more about that, Ken. Jenny says regional community PPI would be interesting. Lower James River communities. Could be something to explore. I mean, not everybody would have to elect to participate if it, you know, if it wanted to be an exploratory thing. We could even just have this woman from Florida. We could ask her to present to our group about the scale of their program to offer some perspective on how that scale would translate to us. Does this plan, these bullets, does this look good to people? Does this excite you? Do you know, does it matter what specifically we cover in these meetings? Is it just helpful to have the 1.5 credits as a, you know, something that you can rely upon? Other growth areas? What's most valuable? Just us meeting and having the ability to hear from one another? Should I chill out on wanting to train so much? I'm so tired of doing these virtual meetings. I wish I could see your faces.
Maybe people can include what's most valuable during the report outs on the next slide.
Yeah, okay. All right, I hear everybody. Move on. Fine. Okay, let's do around report outs. I'll start. We did it. This is what we're doing. Wetlands Watch. Excited for our CCM grant to continue getting out there, working with y'all. Let's have Pocosin go next, since you're first on my list, Ken. All right, people are commenting. Good. All right, Ken, go ahead. Uh-oh. Ken. Why is this not working? Okay, Ken's microphone's not working. All right, Chesapeake, you did yours. How about James City County? Anybody from James City County?
Now I can unmute myself.
Yes, sir.
Hi, MC. Nice to talk to you again.
I know, twice in 7 days.
Yes, yes. I don't have too much to report out on. We've been playing catch up on other program elements and areas recently, and the CRS program has been temporarily put on the shelf. Do intend to pick it up again. I did put something in the chat about outreach projects. When I had spoken with, and I cannot remember her name, our CRS coordinator, ISO coordinator. She had mentioned that we should revamp. She was looking through our stuff and suggested that we look at revamping the way we do outreach. And I thought maybe that might be an interesting topic for the group. And if anybody who's talked with her knows, she's a fast talker, a lot of information, and half of it went over my head. But be that as it may, I think that might be an interesting topic for a future meeting.
Mhm.
That's, if I have something else in terms of an update, I'll throw it in the chat, but that's all I have for now.
That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, the outreach, especially because as some people are starting to cycle through, the way that outreach points are calculated has changed somewhat. So it might be good to do a concentrated review of how to really maximize those points. We have like some tables that sort of show how those points work based off of the different type of outreach action. And that I think has been really helpful to see it visually represented. That helped me orient myself as I was learning that 330 activity. So I think that's a great idea. Love to help with that. Okay. Great suggestions in the chat on things and great feedback. Thank you all so much for doing that. Okay, I'm going to look at my list. Newport News. Do y'all want to go?
I'll go. I don't know if anyone else is on here from Newport News, but we obviously will be joining CRS program in April now. It's been almost a year since we've got approved or stuff, and so finally we'll be in, and then probably dealing with citizen calls as they go through that part versus the risk rating 2.0. So anticipate a little bit there. The big thing we're doing is we are beginning a huge stormwater, floodplain, and resilience master planning effort, comprehensive across the board. We've not done it in the cities for like 20 years. So it's needs to be done. And as part of that will be obviously improving CRS stuff, but it's improving how a kind of a better comprehensive plan for the city moving forward. And we got a huge grant, full grant. They actually changed us from 75% to 90% based off of the, and so I've never had a grant where I got more than I asked for, but so we're very excited. We're literally probably starting it this month. And the grant was very helpful for that. So that's our big focus right now.
Wow, that's great. I'm excited to follow that process. I think that's going to be really cool. You all are doing, I know it's a huge lift.
Mm.
Good. And once you join the CRS, you're going to get all sorts of phone calls from people, hopefully, saying, oh, what's this on my bill? Maybe, maybe.
I don't know. I think it's gonna be hidden in risk rating 2.0. So
Yes, I think that's true. Interesting. Well, keep us posted on how that works. Okay. Hi, did you want to add anything? You're the other Newport News friend.
yeah.
I don't think anybody else.
Yeah, I just attend the training for the recertification lab yesterday, and there was a lot of helpful information. This is going to be our first year in the recertification process, so learn a lot from it. Looking forward to it.
Very cool.
Can I
Good.
ask if the year you get in, do you have to recertify that year or do you get like a buy to the next year?
Ooh,
According to what I learned yesterday is, actually remember, Kathy, we already in recertification for the EC last year in August.
Well, that's
So-
new. The elevation certificates every year, I think is
Right.
new.
And then I from what I learned yesterday is we're not gonna get the buy. I know we officially entered the CRS in April, but at the recertification, we're gonna get the letter in mid-June for the August 1st deadline.
mm,
Great.
Although I don't know, because for Virginia Beach, so we had our verification in September. We went effective in May, and we did not have to recertify that first year.
Okay.
Because I'd asked them, because I was actually pregnant with my daughter at the time, and I'm like, okay, if we have to submit this in August, I am due on July 8th. Like, this isn't happening in August, so it's either going to get bumped or what? And they're like, oh yeah, no, you don't have to this year. So that was my experience.
But do
Okay.
you- But do you think that was because y'all went through an expedited process, Whitney? That was pretty unusual.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because I think the thing is that we hadn't been like from the time they did our verification, like we hadn't been in it a full year, like just the timing wise.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, so not saying it's set in stone, but just saying based on our experience, we did not.
Okay.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Well, we've asked, but we've not gotten straight answers either. So it's really weird.
Mm. Have you asked Emily?
I don't know that. I don't know if Hi has asked her. I haven't. Oh.
No, I have not. But the thing is, we have to submit the documentation on the outreach.
Mm.
So I don't think we're gonna have any kind of gap at all.
Mm. Got it. Okay, great. Thanks, Newport News. Kent Henkel is next from York County.
Yeah, I don't really have any updates, due to other priorities. CRS is kind of in the back seat right now, but we do need to pick it up because I think we can get to a 6 if we ever had time to really put into it. But so we're stuck at a 7 now. Otherwise, nothing's really happened.
Okay, thanks, Kent. City of Norfolk, y'all are next on my list.
Hi, everyone. We don't have much, well, we do actually have much going on. I'm not sure if the last meeting, I don't think I attended, Matt Simons has been promoted to a different department, and he is no longer the floodplain administrator. I have taken over the role, and we now have Alyssa Flatt as our CRS coordinator. And she just started, I think it was either this week or last week. Gosh, all the, I guess, weeks kind of melt together. So that's our big thing. Other than that, I don't really think we have much that we haven't discussed before. So that's about it for me.
That is great. Big news for staff positions in the city of Norfolk. Congratulations to you, Tristan, and welcome, Alyssa.
Yes, I'm very happy to have her on board.
That is wonderful. Okay, let's see. Kristen from FEMA. So we'll take a break from localities for a second. Anything that you want to add to the group?
No, I'm just getting back also from deployments, also maternity leave as well, and a detail. So I'm just trying to catch up as well. But I am definitely looking forward to being more active and assisting. And I kind of wrote down a few of you guys' concerns to talk with Richard about. So I'm just glad to be back to try to get in the groove of things. So that's it. That's all I have.
Very cool. Congratulations on your new baby.
Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Enjoy every second, even the bad seconds.
Are you sure? No, I'm just kidding.
I am, sadly. Even the bad minutes.
There she goes. Sorry about that.
Oh, we love baby sounds in this group. Okay. This is annoying to go through this. Oh, Town of Vinton. Hello.
Good day. This is Fayula with the Town of Vinton. We don't have any news to share, any new updates to share, and I do know that Nathan, that he is actually being in training right now. So that is essentially our update.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm so glad y'all are participating. Okay. Thank you, Town of Vinton. I forgot to launch the last poll, so I'm launching it now. So fill that out at your leisure. Jenny, you're next. Jenny Sneed.
I think she put something in the chat earlier. I know a lot of people.
Oh, she did.
Oh, maybe not her update. It was a question.
Yeah. Oh, she had a recommendation.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey.
I'm on my phone and I haven't been on Zoom on my phone in a while, and it's hard to find the controls. So I apologize for that. I don't have any updates to listen to everything that's going on. Thank you, Mary Carson.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Jenny. Okay, Kurt.
Happy New Year. Glad everybody's doing well and the work is progressing. So I know you guys have got a lot on your plate. So what's new with floodproofing.com? We are continuing to expand flood mitigation options, receiving FM Global certification on flood windows, and working currently with the Corps of Engineers on levee and dune reinforcement solutions. So if we can be of any support, we still do continuing education, which I'll post something in the chat for you to access on that. So for additional flood mitigation resource, you can obviously check those out. And of course, we always are happy to support any community outreach where education on mitigation or insurance can be of help. So please keep us in mind. And again, good luck out there.
Thanks, Kurt. And I trust you're following some of the issues related to risk rating 2.0 and the inclusion of mitigation, structural mitigation in rating discounts, that issue that seems to be relevant. Are you all following that carefully?
Absolutely. And Tyler is always a resource for you, MC. So, feel free to reach out anytime.
Okay, that's great. Good. I've been less active in that conversation the past couple months, so I might just check back with him. Okay. Who am I missing? Let's see. Okay, we did Norfolk. Mark from Smithfield.
Hi, everyone. Mary Carson came and did or gave us our presentation back in December. Not sure where we are with that. I need to talk with my director, Tammy. Tammy's actually in Bristol at the floodplain management training. So I assume we would be working towards that in the near future. But that's all the updates that we have.
That is great. Yes, it was wonderful to be in the town of Smithfield, presenting to y'all and hearing about what the town is doing. It was really, really fun. And I'm so glad to know that Tammy's at the training. That's wonderful. Good. Get that CFM, get those extra points. It's just easy points. Great. Mike Robinson.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Robinson. I'm a hazard mitigation planner with Moffitt and Nickel. I guess the biggest thing that I'm working on at the local level in Virginia is helping the city of Norfolk with a new floodplain management plan. But besides that, just wanted to get caught up on what was going on with CRS in the state and with the communities, and just kind of get re-engaged in that a little bit more. A while back, I did a lot of the regional hazard mitigation plans in Virginia, but I've kind of stepped back from that recently. So a little out of touch on, kind of what the needs are and the issues. So it's been great hearing from everyone this morning and kind of getting caught up on that. So thank you.
Excellent. Glad to have you here, Mike. That's wonderful. Are you all trying to, so City of Norfolk question, are y'all going to submit the new plan as 510, or are you going to keep your credit with the regional hazard mitigation plan?
Yeah, I think I'd have to defer to Tristan or Matt on that in terms of what they want to do at that stage. We're basically kind of what we're doing is taking a lot of the great work that they've done up to this point and kind of reviewing it, kind of consolidating it, pulling it together into one master document, kind of with a master voice and vision and all of that, and kind of getting everything reconciled with all of their plans, studies, reports, everything that they've kind of got going on. So Tristan, not to put you on the spot, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, I will. I think what we're going to actually do is we're hoping that maybe it could overlap whatever the new hazard mitigation plan, I guess their points, and if we could maybe overlap with that, because the last hazard mitigation plan was how many points? Like 300 points. So it was a lot. And it seems like it's going to be very similar to with the updates going to be very similar to the last update. So this is something that we are required to do based on a project that we received funding for. And we had thought about taking the route of getting, going through, because I think we have to go through the 10-step planning process through CRS, but I don't think that we are going to use this plan over the hazard mitigation plan for, I think it was 510.
Okay, that's helpful to know. I was just curious. Yeah, the Hampton Roads plan continues to be the highest scored of any of our hazard mitigation plans for CRS purposes in the state. Lee works directly with someone who used to work at ISO. So that's been very intentional and really incredible to ensure that those points are still available. It would be great to see if you could get supplemental points. I haven't heard of a community doing that. Portsmouth, of course, had the floodplain plan that was created in response to resources from the Army Corps of Engineers as well. And I don't know if they double submitted. You could follow up with Meg Pittenger. She'd be the go-to on that because she was the CRS coordinator at the time that they submitted.
Okay, good. Awesome. Yeah. I will do that. Thank you.
Great. All right. Did I get everybody? Everybody who's offered updates in the chat, thank you so much. Please read the chat so you can hear the updates from people who provided them there. And then the question about repetitive loss and severe repetitive loss data. Norfolk said that they got theirs in December. Ken says talk to Brandy at DCR. So this has just been this one ongoing saga forever and ever. I understand.
I could put Brandy's email in the chat too.
Great. Daryl offering an update on the CFPF resources that Petersburg has received in round 2. They were awarded money to do a citywide drainage study and hire a CFM position to do the resilience plan, updates to the floodplain ordinance, and incorporation of new FEMA mapping. So don't forget about those CFPF capacity building resources. If you feel like you need to study something or plan for something, you don't have to submit a resilience plan in order to access those funds. Okay, I'm going to close the last call on the poll. Okay, it's closed. All right. That's it, I think.
Hey, Mary Carson.
Ben.
This is Ben. Sorry, I was late, had another meeting this morning, and just when you realized, I was like, oh, this meeting's still going on. I should pop on. Just real quick, the design standards that we've been working on for tailwater and precipitation, that's still underway. And my understanding is that some of that might be useful for anybody working on one of the stormwater master plans for CRS credits. So if that is something, if you're in Hampton Roads and you're interested in that, and you want to learn more, if you're not already involved in our resilience committee, shoot me an email. I'll just put my email in the chat. Would love to get some insight from those that are working on those about like what we could do to kind of reduce duplication of effort if possible across multiple localities doing the same kind of thing. I know it's got to be a local plan, but if there are inputs to those local plans that could be done at scale, we'd be happy to help. And I think at least one of those products might be useful for that. So if you are interested, shoot me an email. But yeah, that's all.
Ben, do you have a like a few slides like the ones that you gave at the last resilience meeting? Do you want me to include those in the PowerPoint or link to them in the
yeah, I'll send you MC, I'll send you the latest and greatest on the draft materials and the last slide deck I used for it. And then if you want to share those with this group, that's fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think it'd be good for us just to keep those as a reference on our website. And then for folks that aren't served by the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, you know, it's a great exportable frame of of standards that could be incorporated elsewhere.
Yeah, the methodology we used could be, I think, is applicable. I don't know about the inland areas, but certainly for the coastal areas, the inputs and the methodologies could be used everywhere, not just in Hampton Roads. It's possible that some of that could be applied to some of the inland areas as well, but I don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't do the work for everybody. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And if you didn't see that presentation made to the Resilience Committee, then definitely check out the document that we'll post on the website so you can see what they've been up to. Really great work, awesome work from the PDC. All right. Anybody else? I feel like, did anybody else join late and I don't see them? Nope. Okay, 4 minutes early. Yay. Thank you all so much for being a part of our conversation today. Really appreciate it.